My name is Linda Harper, and at 56, I thought I had transcended the battles of corporate politics. After decades of reinventing my life, divorcing David, rebuilding my creative business, setting boundaries with my children, even turning my past employers into my toughest clients, I had finally reached a point of profound peace. My strategic design firm, Harper Creative, was thriving in Chicago, commanding respect and generating substantial revenue. But even for a woman who felt utterly self-possessed, the world of work still held its unexpected cruel eyes. My new project, a complex contract with MedTech Innovations, a rapidly growing healthcare tech startup in downtown Chicago, felt like a pinnacle. They needed a chief brand officer for a crucial new product launch, a role I could fulfill through my firm as a high-level consultant. It was an opportunity to blend my creative vision with strategic leadership on a global scale. I was excited. I was respected. And for a fleeting moment, I believed my age, my wisdom, was finally valued in this new, fast-paced tech world. But MedTech, for all its innovation, had a hidden culture of aggressive ageism. Its young, visionary CEO, a man in his early 30s named Ethan Price, was obsessed with youthful energy and disruptive thinking. I soon realized my wisdom was merely a novelty to him. My methodical approach was seen as slow, my nuanced insights as overthinking. My instincts screamed danger, but my professional pride kept me engaged. Then came the meeting. The day I was dismissed. The moment Ethan Price, with a casual disregard for a decade of my strategic work on the project, informed me I was being replaced by someone half my age. He said he needed fresh perspectives and a leader who could relate to the modern demographic. He thought he was simply streamlining his team, quietly dismissing an aging, traditionalist consultant. He thought he had severed our ties cleanly. He had no idea he was dealing with a woman who had meticulously built the very system they needed. And in his arrogance, he forgot the most basic rule of digital security. He forgot I was the only one who knew the master password. This is the story of how my calm retaliation turned his fresh perspective into his greatest professional nightmare. Before I tell you every single satisfying detail of how I turned that professional humiliation into my most profound act of strategic vindication, I want to invite you into this space. If you've ever felt that your invaluable experience was discounted because of your age, if you've ever been subtly pushed aside for someone younger and fresher, if you've ever found yourself dismissed after giving your all, then hit that subscribe button. This channel is a sanctuary for the unseen professionals, a gathering place for women who are reclaiming their power and proving that true relevance is earned through wisdom, not through arbitrary age limits. You won't want to miss seeing how this unfolds. Part 1. The apex of experience and the subtlety of exclusion. My life in Chicago, at 56, was a testament to the power of transformation. Harper Creative, my graphic design and branding firm, was not just thriving, it was flourishing. We had expanded, taken on a national profile with our new New York office, and commanded respect in an industry often obsessed with fleeting trends. My renovated townhouse in Ukrainian Village was my tranquil refuge, a physical space that mirrored the inner peace I had cultivated. The last vestiges of menopausal fog had lifted years ago, replaced by a crystalline clarity that had become my superpower. My mind, sharp and strategic, thrived on complex challenges. My personal life was equally fulfilling. My relationships with Mark and Emily had deepened, built on mutual respect and genuine affection, unburdened by past expectations. They sought my advice not just on life's big decisions, but on the quiet nuances of professional leadership and personal growth. My granddaughter, Clara, was a vibrant source of pure, unadulterated joy. I had truly, deeply, found my stride. This context of hard-won peace made my engagement with MedTech Innovations particularly compelling. They were a rapidly growing healthcare tech startup based in a sleek, glass-and-steel high-rise in the West Loop, specializing in AI-driven diagnostics for remote patient monitoring. Their flagship product, a revolutionary telehealth platform called Clarity Health, was on the cusp of a major global launch. They needed a chief brand officer to craft their messaging, their visual identity, and their market positioning for this critical expansion. I was brought in by their head of talent acquisition as a high-level consultant through Harper Creative. It was an opportunity to blend my creative vision with strategic leadership on a global scale. This wasn't just a design project. It was about building a brand that could genuinely transform lives. I was excited. I felt respected. And for a fleeting, dangerous moment, I allowed myself to believe that my age, my decades of wisdom and experience, was finally genuinely valued in this new, fast-paced tech world. But MedTech, for all its innovative veneer, harbored a deep-seated, almost invisible culture of aggressive ageism. Its young, charismatic CEO, a man in his early 30s named Ethan Price, was undeniably brilliant, a visionary whose energy crackled through every meeting. He was obsessed with youthful energy, disruptive thinking, and scaling with velocity. These were the mantras painted on the walls of their open-plan offices. He surrounded himself with equally young, equally ambitious, equally stressed professionals. From my very first meeting, I realized my wisdom was merely a novelty to him, a curious artifact from a bygone era. My methodical approach to strategic planning, my insistence on nuanced market research, my patient build-out of a comprehensive brand identity, all of it was seen not as thoroughness, but as slow. My nuanced insights were dismissed as overthinking. My calls for long-term brand equity were met with a dismissive wave of his hand. We need viral growth, Linda, not philosophy. My instincts, honed by years of subtly battling David's casual contempt and Marcus Thorne's overt arrogance, screamed danger. This environment was subtly toxic, designed for speed over substance, for appearance over true value. But my professional pride kept me engaged. I believed I could prove myself. I believed the results of my work would speak louder than their prejudices. I had navigated patriarchal arrogance before. I was an architect of brands. I would just build this one better. I poured myself into the Clarity Health project. I developed a comprehensive brand strategy that focused on trust, empathy, and accessible innovation, rather than just flashy tech. I created a robust visual identity system, designed the user interface for the platform, and wrote the core messaging for their global launch campaign. I was in all the meetings, I was presenting to their board, I was interacting directly with Ethan Price, always with a polished professionalism that belied my internal frustrations. I often felt like the adult in a room full of brilliant but impatient teenagers. Ethan, for his part, was always polite. He'd nod, smile, and praise my work. Great insights, Linda. Very solid. But his words felt hollow. His eyes held that familiar, distant, assessing gaze I knew from David, the look of a person appraising a useful tool, not a valued partner. My age, my wisdom, was still a curious anomaly, not a source of strength. And deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before they decided my old-fashioned brilliance was no longer relevant enough for their modern narrative. My internal clarity told me this. My past experience screamed it. My gut was twisting with a familiar dread. Part 2. The email of disregard and the meeting of my demise. The tension simmered for weeks, a low, constant hum beneath the surface of my polite professional interactions with MedTech Innovations. The Clarity Health project, a monumental undertaking, was progressing rapidly, largely due to my meticulous planning and extensive strategic input. My office, vibrant and filled with creative energy, now dedicated over half its resources to this single, defining contract. I lived and breathed MedTech. Then came the subtle slights. They stopped inviting me to the internal hackathons, team-building events filled with energetic young coders and designers brainstorming late into the night. "Oh, Linda," a junior project manager would say, "I didn't think you'd be interested in ping pong and craft beer after 7 p.m. It was a casual dismissal, painting me as a relic who preferred quiet evenings to dynamic collaboration. Emails about upcoming innovator summits or future tech roundtables that directly related to my brand strategy role were sent to everyone but me. I'd find out about them through Mark, who followed the tech world religiously, or through incidental office conversations. When I asked Ethan about it, he'd offer a quick, disarming smile. Oh, my apologies, Linda. That's just for the internal core team, you know. High level, very confidential. You wouldn't want to get bogged down in the minutiae. Minutiae. Another code word for too complicated for your older brain. My contract was due for renewal in 3 months, but the core work for Clarity Health's initial launch was largely complete. I had built the branding architecture, the strategic framework, the visual identity guidelines, and the comprehensive launch playbook. The foundation was rock solid. All that remained was the execution, the implementation, tasks that a competent internal team could handle. I suspected I was becoming redundant. Or worse, too expensive. The fear, a cold, insidious dread, began to twist in my stomach. I had given so much of myself to this project, to this young, ambitious company. I had poured my intellect, my passion, my years of hard-won experience into making them a success. Was it all for nothing? Was my age, my physical presence, once again going to be a barrier to my own professional worth? Then came the email. Not from Ethan, but from Sarah Chin, the CEO of Innovent Health, my former client, and a woman I still consulted with occasionally. Her email, direct and empathetic, conveyed news she clearly struggled to share. Linda, it began, I wanted to reach out directly. I heard through industry channels that MedTech Innovations has recently engaged a new chief brand officer. A young talent, direct from Stanford's design school. She's 25. Her name is Olivia Chun. I suspect this will impact your role there.
Please reach out when you can.
I'm here for you. The words on the screen swam before my eyes. Fired. Replaced. By a 25-year-old. The raw humiliation was absolute. Not even a phone call. Not a personal conversation. An indirect notification, a polite digital dismissal via a sympathetic third party. They didn't even have the decency to tell me to my face. My years of experience, my meticulous work, my dedication, all of it rendered irrelevant, disposable, exchanged for fresh perspective and youthful energy. My menopausal clarity surged through me, replacing the initial shock with a searing, white-hot rage. Fresh perspective. Relate to the modern demographic. The ageist cliches, thinly veiled euphemisms for you're too old. They saw my wisdom not as an asset, but as baggage. My strategic mind not as an advantage, but as an anachronism. They thought a young, theoretically brilliant mind could step into my shoes without missing a beat. They had no idea that I hadn't just worn those shoes. I had built the entire complex path upon which they stood. My memory, sharp as ever, flashed back to a conversation with Ethan Price a few months ago. We were in his office, discussing system security for their Clarity Health platform. He was worried about data breaches, about protecting sensitive patient information. He had shown me the beta version of their complex, bespoke internal network, MedLink, and the massive database that housed all their sensitive information, everything from patient data to marketing strategies, intellectual property, and detailed competitor analyses. He was concerned about its vulnerability to external threats. I had recommended a complex, multi-layered security protocol, a system of master passwords and hierarchical access codes. I had, in fact, personally implemented the master access for the entire system, a key phrase that unlocked and managed all subordinate logins. It was a fail-safe, designed to give ultimate control to one person, in case of emergencies. You're the only one who knows the master password, Linda, he'd said with a laugh. It's brilliant. If anything ever goes sideways, you're our last line of defense. Don't forget it. He had meant it as a compliment, a recognition of my strategic foresight. But in his youthful arrogance, he had completely, spectacularly, forgotten the implications of what he had just created. He had given me, the aging, traditionalist consultant, the ultimate key to his digital kingdom. And now he had just fired me. A cold, precise, devastating plan began to form in my mind. They wanted fresh perspective? They wanted to relate to the modern demographic? Fine. But they were about to learn that when you try to sideline a strategic mind, that mind doesn't just retreat. It doesn't just complain. It takes the game, the ball, and the entire team to another stadium. This wasn't just about reclaiming my worth. This was about proving that my intellectual property, my strategic brilliance, my very presence, was fundamentally non-negotiable. And they were about to learn that forgetting a useless, older woman could lead to their greatest professional nightmare. Part 3. The Ghost in the Machine. The email from Sarah Chun felt like a detonator. My first impulse was raw, burning rage. They fired me. Not with a personal meeting, not with a formal severance package. With a silent, almost cowardly dismissal, relayed through a sympathetic third party. And they replaced me with a child. The contempt was breathtaking. My intellect, my experience, my very existence was reduced to a disposable commodity, traded for youthful energy. But my rage, now accustomed to the cold, clarifying fire of menopause, did not dissipate into a useless tantrum. It solidified into a clear, precise objective: strategic retaliation. Ethan Price and MedTech Innovations were about to learn that an older woman's memory, far from failing, could be their most formidable weapon. They thought they owned all the access codes. They had forgotten I held the master key. My focus immediately shifted to the MedLink system, their proprietary internal network. The complex, bespoke digital architecture that housed everything: product development roadmaps, sensitive patient data, global marketing strategies, internal financial projections, and competitor analyses. This system was the central nervous system of MedTech Innovations, their most valuable asset. And I was the only one who knew the master password. The password Ethan himself had asked me to create as a failsafe. My initial plan was simple: change the master password, lock them out, cripple their system. But then, the strategic mind I had honed for decades took over. Simple destruction was too blunt, too direct. It was revenge, yes, but not elegant, not devastating enough. I wasn't just going to burn their house down. I was going to quietly, meticulously empty it out first. My revenge would be precise, devastating, and entirely untraceable. I wasn't going to steal data. That was illegal and uncivilized. I was going to leverage my own invaluable expertise. I would show them what happens when you cut out the one person who truly understood the core vulnerabilities of your entire system. My first call was not to Ethan, but to my lawyer, Catherine Rinaldi. I outlined the situation calmly, precisely. The termination without cause, the lack of notice, the abrupt replacement. And then the master password. Catherine listened, her silence pregnant with implications. "Linda," she finally said, her voice grim, "this is highly unethical on their part. We can pursue wrongful termination, age discrimination, and the master password. That's a unique leverage point. But it needs to be handled with extreme caution. Any unauthorized access can have severe legal ramifications." "I have no intention of breaking the law, Catherine," I said. "My goal is not destruction. It's disclosure, to the right parties, and to ensure that my valuable intellectual property, the brand strategy one poured into Clarity Health, does not go unrecognized." Catherine outlined the legal landscape. I couldn't delete their data. I couldn't lock them out. But I could access it. I could read it. And more importantly, I could anticipate their every move, using my unique position to benefit my other clients who operated in similar sectors. My expertise, after all, was invaluable and ethical. The idea was audacious. MedTech Innovations was a tech startup. They ran on venture capital. Their primary objective was a massive, successful global launch of Clarity Health. But as with many startups, there were, I knew, hidden vulnerabilities, aggressive growth targets, internal cost-cutting measures, and, crucially, pressure to show profitability to impatient investors. I had the complete picture of their financial health, their user acquisition models, their marketing spend by region. I had the complete blueprint. My strategic pivot would leverage this. My target was not MedTech Innovations, not directly. It was their main competitors, and the powerful venture capital firms that funded them. I would ensure that any direct rival seeking to replicate MedTech's success would know exactly where their weaknesses lay. Not by stealing their data, but by intuitively knowing what not to do, where the pitfalls were. And I, Linda Harper, through Harper Creative, would offer consulting services that elegantly bypassed all of MedTech's unseen strategic landmines. I was going to help their competitors learn from MedTech's future mistakes. My strategic brilliance, which they had deemed useless, would now become invaluable to others. Over the next few days, I spent hours in my home office, my brain on overdrive. The too emotional woman was meticulously mapping out a data-driven strategy of subtle, yet devastating, corporate warfare. I logged into MedLink. Not to change passwords, not to delete files, but to observe. I watched their marketing campaigns roll out. I saw their internal debates about feature development. I saw their sales projections against actual customer acquisition data. I noticed their vulnerabilities, their Achilles heel. I noticed precisely where their youthful energy and disruptive thinking lacked the strategic depth and long-term vision that only decades of experience could provide. I was now an invisible ghost in their machine, learning all of their secrets, not for theft, but for strategic advantage. I meticulously downloaded my own portfolio of work, my contributions to Clarity Health's brand strategy. The complex brand guidelines, the design principles, the core messaging frameworks. This was my intellectual property. This was the work they had casually dismissed. I encrypted it, secured it, and prepared it for a different showcase. A showcase for a new set of clients, their rivals, and their venture capitalists. This wasn't just about showing them they were wrong to fire me. This was about redefining usefulness on a monumental scale. And I, the invisible, aging consultant, was about to prove that knowledge, quietly held, could be the most potent weapon of all. The master password wasn't just a key to their system, it was a key to their undoing. And my calm retaliation had just begun. Part 4. The unseen architect of their problems, the corporate world, is a finely tuned echo chamber. News, even bad news, travels fast. Within days of my dismissal from MedTech Innovations, a polite but firm email from Ethan Price had arrived, formalizing the termination of my contract. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of my contributions, just a cold, transactional farewell. This was a man obsessed with appearances. He preferred a clean break, a tidy transition to his younger, fresher vision. He wanted no messy emotions. He was about to get a strategic, ruthless demonstration of just how impactful messy emotions could be when channeled correctly. The news of my departure also quietly circulated through Chicago's tech community. Some were sympathetic. Many were simply curious. Linda Harper was a big get for MedTech. Wonder why they let her go? I heard a friend from my Innovant Health days say. The general assumption was either a disagreement over strategy, or perhaps, subtly, that my old-school approach simply didn't fit their disruptive pace. Ethan Price, MedTech's CEO, was clearly reveling in his new chief brand officer, Olivia Chen. Her LinkedIn profile was impressive. Stanford, a string of buzzy startup internships, articles about next-gen brand engagement. He believed he had traded old baggage for new brilliance. He was about to discover the hidden price of that trade. My retaliation wasn't public. It was utterly, terrifyingly subtle. I didn't blast Ethan on social media. I didn't write an angry blog post. I didn't go to the press. My revenge was surgical, precise, and aimed at the very foundations of their carefully constructed narrative of innovation and rapid growth. I used my access to the MedLink system, the master password I still possessed, not for sabotage but for observation. My primary purpose was to anticipate their failures. I observed their product launch plans for Clarity Health. I saw their global marketing budgets. I watched their internal debates about pricing strategies and target demographics. My understanding of their inner workings was now absolute. I saw their weaknesses with crystalline clarity, an over-reliance on flashy influencer marketing, an underestimation of traditional healthcare gatekeepers, and a fundamental misunderstanding of long-term patient trust. Their disruptive thinking was often just undisciplined chaos. I then started building relationships with MedTech Innovations' primary competitors, not to offer stolen secrets, but to subtly guide them away from MedTech's hidden pitfalls. I secured a new consulting contract with Health Tech Solutions, a slightly older, more methodical healthcare tech company in Boston, which was struggling to compete with MedTech's flashy image. I offered them strategic advice on brand building, messaging, and market positioning. Your competitors are focused on short-term viral growth, I'd tell their CEO, a pragmatic woman named Dr. Anya Gupta, subtly alluding to MedTech without ever naming them. They're neglecting the long game of building genuine patient trust. They're making a fundamental mistake in segmenting their audience. I would gently steer health tech solutions towards strategies that directly countered MedTech's unseen weaknesses, emphasizing data security, building long-term physician relationships, investing in subtle patient testimonials. My insights, born from intimate knowledge of their rivals' exact missteps, felt like prescience. I became an invaluable asset to health tech solutions, rapidly accelerating their brand's authority and market share. I wasn't just working for them. I was inadvertently making them better than MedTech, one strategic adjustment at a time. My knowledge, once useless, was now supremely valuable. The results were slow, but undeniable. MedTech Innovations launched Clarity Health with a huge, flashy campaign, exactly as I had seen unfold in their internal meddling debates. It was a spectacle of youthful energy and bold promises. But their market penetration, their actual patient acquisition, lagged. Their conversion rates were disappointing. Their investor calls grew tense. They couldn't understand why their disruptive strategy wasn't disrupting the market more effectively. I knew why. They had forgotten that strategy requires depth, not just speed. They had forgotten that human trust is built on authenticity, not just flashy ads. They had fired the very person who understood these nuances. And I, the too emotional woman, was quietly, systematically, exploiting their every strategic blind spot, guiding their competitors around their self-dug traps. My vengeance was a masterpiece of passive aggression, built entirely on their own folly. And they were utterly blind to it. Part 5. The Unseen Collapse and the Invaluable Blueprint, the Decline of MedTech Innovations, was not sudden. It was a slow, agonizing process, like watching a perfectly crafted sandcastle crumble under the relentless tide. Their initial product launch for Clarity Health, while visually stunning, failed to generate the sustained traction needed to satisfy their demanding venture capital investors. The problems I had observed from within their system, the over-reliance on shallow metrics, the underestimation of traditional healthcare gatekeepers, the failure to cultivate deep, long-term patient trust, began to manifest as missed targets and mounting financial pressure. I continued my observation from my home office in Ukrainian village, logging into MedLink with a master password a few times a week just to track their progress. It was fascinating, a live case study in corporate hubris. I watched as Ethan Price, the young CEO who had fired me, grew visibly stressed. His internal emails grew terse. His calls to investors grew more frequent and more desperate. He pushed his young team harder, demanding more velocity, more disruption, failing to grasp that the fundamental problem lay in his strategic approach, not their execution. Meanwhile, Harper Creative's reputation as a strategic powerhouse in the healthcare tech branding space grew exponentially. My work with health tech solutions in Boston, leveraging my insights into MedTech's missteps, resulted in a wildly successful rebranding and market capture strategy. Health tech solutions, once a quiet competitor, began to significantly chip away at MedTech's market share. Their growth, measured in tangible patient acquisition and sustained user engagement, was a direct testament to my old-fashioned wisdom. The industry began to whisper, MedTech has great tech, but their brand feels off. I'd hear from industry colleagues at Chicago networking events. Health tech, on the other hand, just feels more trustworthy, more human. Who's behind their branding now? The questions always eventually led to Harper Creative.
To me,
Ethan Price, increasingly desperate, even consulted a major branding agency, one of Apex Marketing's big rivals, for advice. He clearly had no idea that the senior strategic advisor they were now scrambling to find had been sitting under his nose for months, building his entire system. And he certainly had no idea I was now building a competitor. The actual unraveling happened when MedTech Innovations went for its next round of venture capital funding. The investors, seasoned and ruthless, looked not just at the flashy presentations, but at the numbers. They saw stalled user growth. They saw high acquisition costs.
They
saw a brand that wasn't resonating in the way they had been promised. My insights, my original predictions of their missteps, were playing out in real time. The too emotional woman, the one who saw value in trust and long-term engagement, was right. And her correctness was costing them millions. Ethan Price, in a desperate attempt to show flexibility and new direction, even replaced Olivia Chen, the 25-year-old chief brand officer he had hired to replace me. He fired her and brought in yet another young hotshot, repeating the cycle of discarding valuable talent for superficial newness. It was a brutal irony. He thought he needed a fresher face.
He truly needed a deeper mind.
And he had just fired it. The silence that followed was palpable. Investors withdrew. Partnerships stalled. The promising future of Clarity Health, the product I had meticulously branded, began to dim. The ambitious promises painted on the walls of MedTech's offices now felt like a cruel joke. Their disruptive thinking had successfully disrupted themselves. I finally logged into MedLink for the last time. The internal communications were grim. Layoffs were being discussed. Projects were being put on hold. The visionary young CEO, Ethan Price, looked exhausted, defeated. His brilliant vision was collapsing around him simply because he failed to recognize and value the foundational importance of human connection and strategic wisdom. He had been so obsessed with the idea of new that he had missed the irreplaceable value of know-how. The master password was not just a technical key. It was a metaphor. It was the key to understanding the deeper currents of the corporate world, the nuanced human elements that make or break a brand. And they had fired the only one who truly held it. They had dismissed the very intellect that had given them their strategic advantage. My quiet retaliation had not been to destroy their system, but to highlight its inevitable, fatal flaws. And to leverage those flaws into my own spectacular success. Part 6. The return of the invaluable consultant. The implosion of MedTech Innovations was swift, decisive, and entirely a consequence of their own internal biases. They eventually pivoted, sold off assets, and significantly downsized their ambitious Clarity Health platform, largely due to market saturation and their inability to distinguish their brand effectively. Ethan Price, once touted as a visionary, found his reputation significantly diminished. The company continued to exist, a shadow of its former potential, trapped in a self-inflicted strategic quagmire. My revenge was never about malice. It was about demonstration. It was about proving, unequivocally, that my experience and intuition were invaluable, regardless of my age. And it worked. Harper Creative became a recognized powerhouse, especially in the healthcare tech space. My original client, Health Tech Solutions, thrived, becoming a strong, empathetic brand directly competing with MedTech's diminished presence. My insights, born from intimate knowledge of MedTech's every misstep, were precisely what their rivals needed to succeed. About a year after MedTech's downturn, I received a phone call from an unexpected source, Ethan Price. His voice, usually brisk and confident, was now laced with a strained humility. "Linda," he began, "this is Ethan Price from MedTech Innovations. I know things ended abruptly, and I deeply regret how that was handled. I've had a lot of time to reflect on it. Our current strategic challenges are significant." I listened silently. The too emotional woman was perfectly composed. "We need help," he continued, a note of desperation entering his voice. "We're trying to figure out how to regain market trust, how to reposition Clarity Health in a more authentic way. We need a brand strategy that truly resonates, that builds long-term loyalty, not just fleeting interest. And frankly, Linda, I've seen your work with Health Tech Solutions. It's brilliant. It's exactly what we need. And I finally understand why." He paused, then took a deep breath. "You told me about authenticity, about human connection, about subtle insights over flashy trends. I dismissed you. I called you too emotional. I replaced you with someone younger. I was a fool. I understand now that your approach wasn't old-fashioned. It was simply deeper. And that depth is what we lack. You are the only person who truly understands this space. And our weaknesses. Would you consider coming back as a high-level strategic consultant? Whatever your terms are, we desperately need your help. The request hung in the air, thick with irony. The CEO who had fired me for being too emotional, who had replaced me with a 25-year-old, was now begging me to return, acknowledging my unique brilliance and admitting his profound misjudgment. The very system he had relied on to sideline me, his belief in youthful energy, had failed him completely. And I, the older, traditionalist consultant, was now his last resort. I allowed a long silence to stretch between us, savoring the weight of it. "Ethan," I said, my voice calm, but with an underlying steel he surely heard. "My rates have increased significantly since we last spoke. And my terms are, shall we say, non-negotiable. I demand full creative autonomy, unfiltered access to your data, and absolutely no dismissive labels based on age or gender. If you can agree to that, then yes, we can talk." He stammered his agreement. He was desperate.
Yes.
"Absolutely, Linda. Whatever you need. Just name your price." "My price is respect, Ethan," I said, "and the recognition that true wisdom transcends any arbitrary age limit." The negotiation was swift. Harper Creative was re-engaged by MedTech Innovations, not as a contract for my services, but as a full-fledged consulting partnership. The terms were astronomical, reflecting my new market value and the depth of their desperation. My control over the project was absolute. Ethan, humble and chastened, became genuinely deferential. My original master password to their system became the symbol of my complete authority. They had fired the strategist, and now they were paying dearly to bring her back. And this time, she owned the entire chessboard. Part 7. The true meaning of value, the irony of working again for MedTech Innovations, for the very CEO who had dismissed me for being too emotional, was a quiet, constant hum beneath the surface of my renewed professional life. This time, however, my role was utterly transformed. I was no longer an external consultant striving for acknowledgement. I was a pivotal partner, an indispensable strategic leader. My voice, my ideas, my instincts, all were not just heard, but eagerly sought and implicitly trusted. Ethan Price, humbled by his company's near collapse and his personal misjudgments, became a changed man. He listened intently during our strategy sessions, often asking probing questions designed not to challenge, but to genuinely understand my thought process. He recognized now that my emotional intelligence, the very quality he had once mocked, was, in fact, my profound ability to anticipate market shifts, to build authentic brand narratives, and to foster genuine connections with patients and healthcare providers. He saw that true leadership was not about being young or disruptive, but about being wise, adaptable, and deeply human. My influence permeated every level of MedTech Innovations. I restructured their brand development processes, insisting on qualitative consumer insights over flashy, data-light campaigns. I mentored their new, genuinely brilliant chief brand officer, a woman in her late 30s whom Ethan hired after firing Olivia Chen. She was eager to learn, absorbing my guidance like a sponge, recognizing that my years of experience offered invaluable shortcuts through the complex maze of brand strategy. I had become the strategic architect of MedTech's true rebirth, not its mere contractor. The ultimate vindication came during a major investor presentation. MedTech, under my strategic guidance, was finally regaining trust. Their Clarity Health platform, repositioned with an authentic, empathetic brand voice, was showing renewed growth. During the presentation, a prominent venture capitalist, a woman in her late 50s known for her shrewd investments, directly questioned Ethan about their past failures. "Mr. Price," she'd said, her voice sharp, "your previous launch strategy seemed to miss the mark. What has fundamentally changed?" Ethan Price, surprisingly, didn't shy away. He looked directly at me, then back at the investor. "What has fundamentally changed," he said, his voice firm and sincere, "is that we brought back the most invaluable mind in this entire industry. We brought back Linda Harper." I once made the catastrophic error of dismissing her wisdom, thinking her approach was too emotional or old-fashioned. I was utterly wrong. Her strategic depth, her ability to understand the true human element of healthcare, her unparalleled experience, that is what has transformed MedTech Innovations. She is not just a consultant. She is the chief brand architect of our future. And frankly, we are fortunate she chose to return. His words, delivered with public humility and unwavering respect, resonated deeply. The investor nodded, a slow, appreciative smile spreading across her face as she looked at me. In that moment, surrounded by hundreds of the most powerful people in tech and finance, I felt the ultimate triumph. It wasn't about the money. It was about validation. It was about being seen. It was about being invaluable. It was about proving that value has no age limit. The final confirmation of my ultimate revenge came from a more subtle source. I learned that Marcus Thorne, my original tormentor at Sterling Innovations, was now struggling. His attempts to copy MedTech's initial flashy approach, without the foundational strategic thought I had provided, had ultimately failed. He was still in his role, but his reputation was permanently tarnished. He was the cautionary tale. And I, the woman he had dismissed, was the success story. My wisdom, which he had overlooked, had ultimately defined both our fates. He thought he was irreplaceable. He just learned that true usefulness is built on something deeper than ego. He found that out, unfortunately for him, after he'd pushed away the only one who truly held the master key to success. Part 8. The unveiling of my true legacy. My life, now at 57, hums with a deep, unwavering resonance. Harper Creative has become a formidable force in strategic branding, known for our unique blend of cutting-edge digital insights and timeless human-centered philosophy. My West Loop studio buzzes with energy, filled with talented individuals whom I mentor, ensuring their brilliance is always grounded in authenticity. My physical being mirrors my inner peace. My body feels strong and capable, no longer subject to the relentless internal battles of menopause, its changes now simply part of the tapestry of a life well lived. My professional ascendancy with MedTech Innovations has solidified my reputation across the entire healthcare tech sector. Ethan Price, once my dismissal's unwitting architect, is now my most vocal champion, regularly crediting me in public forums for the company's dramatic turnaround. He embodies a humility born of hard-won lessons, a respect for experience that has replaced his youthful hubris. His team, initially wary, now eagerly seeks my counsel, recognizing that my approach, far from being old-fashioned, is precisely what the modern market truly demands. My relationships with Mark and Emily have flourished, built on a foundation of profound mutual respect. They no longer question my decisions, my life choices, or my pursuit of boundless purpose. Mark, through observing my journey with MedTech, has learned invaluable lessons about the long game of reputation and the hidden value of human connection in the corporate world. He often seeks my guidance on his own leadership dilemmas, relying on my old-fashioned wisdom to navigate the nuanced challenges of his career. Emily, now juggling her thriving career and her joyful life as a mother to Clara, embodies the beautiful complexity of modern womanhood. She no longer makes subtle dismissals about my age or my understanding of her world. Instead, she turns to me for candid advice on balancing ambition with authenticity, on preserving her true self amidst external pressures. She sees me not just as mom, but as a testament to profound personal resilience, a woman who truly lives on her own terms. My granddaughter, Clara, a vibrant, curious force of nature, is a constant source of unadulterated joy, her laughter filling my life with a boundless light. The ghost of Marcus Thorne, the man who called me too emotional, and the ghost of David, who dismissed my entire being as useless, have faded into irrelevance. They live in worlds defined by their own self-imposed limitations, utterly unaware of the vibrant, expansive reality I now inhabit. My victory wasn't just about outsmarting them. It was about outliving their definitions of me, proving that my true power lay not in external validation, but in my own unwavering belief in my worth. My journey through divorce, family struggles, and workplace battles has forged me into a leader who is unafraid to be authentically herself. The silent changes of menopause, the subtle shifts in my body and mind, were not a decline. They were a refining fire, burning away all pretense, leaving only courage, clarity, and an unapologetic commitment to my own truth. I am a leader not because I am unemotional, but because I allow my authentic self, my experience, and yes, my deeply felt emotions to inform every strategic decision. This, I realized, is the true meaning of power, and it is limitless. My legacy is not just my thriving business, but the indelible impact I've had on those around me, proving that experience, when truly valued, is the most powerful currency of all. My power isn't about control. It's about genuine impact. Part 9. The Master Key to Unwavering Self-Worth. I stood in the vast, modern conference room at Innovent Health's new headquarters, looking out over the gleaming expanse of the Chicago skyline. My project, our monumental success, was a paradigm shift. MedTech Innovations, under my strategic guidance, was thriving, its brand rebuilt on foundations of authenticity and empathy. It was compelling, genuine, and resonated deeply with audiences worldwide. The success felt exhilarating, yes, but more profoundly, it felt utterly vindicating. It had begun with a casual dismissal. Too emotional. A common, age-old weapon used to diminish a woman's assertiveness, her passion, her very drive. They try to convince you that your strength is a flaw, your genuine emotion a sign of weakness. They tell you to control it, to suppress it, to be more rational. But what Ethan Price and Marcus Thorne before him failed to understand was that my emotional intelligence, my ability to read the unspoken cues, to understand human motivations beyond the numbers, to genuinely connect with the underlying consumer psyche, was not a weakness. It was my greatest strength. It was the very foundation of my strategic brilliance. Menopause had not made me irrational, it had made me unflinchingly honest. It burned away my patience for superficiality. It clarified my vision, stripping away the noise to reveal the true core of things. This clarity allowed me to see Ethan Price not as an impenetrable titan, but as a young man blinded by ambition and limited by inexperience. It allowed me to see Marcus Thorne not as a formidable opponent, but as a man undone by his own prejudice. It allowed me to transform their insults into the fuel for my most strategic professional coup. The too emotional woman didn't just walk away. She walked away with the project, the client, and ultimately, a reputation that far eclipsed their own. My true legacy, I realized, was not just in building a thriving business. It was in transforming the very currency of my worth. They had tried to devalue my experience, to sideline my contribution, by simply replacing me. They thought that by ignoring me, they could make me disappear. But the silent change after 50 is not a retreat. It is a refinement. It is a crystallization of decades of wisdom into an unstoppable force. It is the unwavering conviction that true value does not need an invitation. It simply manifests, and then it demands to be seen
and paid for.
My influence is now undeniable. My value, unapologetic. My master key was not just a password to a system, it was the master key to my own unwavering self-worth. And that truly unlocked everything. Part 10. The Leadership of Unapologetic Authenticity. I am now 58. Harper Creative has opened a second office in New York City, solidifying our national presence. We are a formidable force, celebrated for our strategic foresight and our human-centered approach to digital branding. My daily life, balanced between leadership of a growing firm and moments of quiet reflection in my Ukrainian village garden, is one of profound purpose and boundless joy. I am not slowing down. I am accelerating. My connection with Mark and Emily is stronger than ever. Mark, now a thriving entrepreneur himself, often references my story to inspire his own teams, holding me up as a paradigm of resilience and strategic vision. Emily, too, has come to appreciate my relentless pursuit of authenticity, drawing lessons from my professional assertiveness as she navigates her own career trajectory at Lumensphere. We share a genuine, unburdened respect, stripped of any lingering entitlements or outdated assumptions about Mom. My grandchild, Clara, is now a bright, curious young girl, and our hours together are filled with boundless, unconditional love. Ethan Price, the CEO who once fired me, is now a trusted colleague and a vocal champion of Harper Creative, publicly attributing MedTech Innovations' resurgence directly to my strategic guidance. He often speaks of his past naivete and acknowledges that true leadership demands both innovation and wisdom, regardless of age. His respect, hard-won and deeply earned, is a profound testament to the power of a quiet, unyielding comeback. My presence in their ecosystem is a constant, subtle reminder of the consequences of underestimating experienced talent. My former tormentors, David and Marcus Thorne, still exist somewhere in the Chicago corporate landscape. Their careers are stagnant, their reputations tarnished, living in diminished realities of their own making. They are utterly unaware of the vibrant, expansive reality I now inhabit. My victory wasn't just about outsmarting them. It was about outliving their definitions of me, proving that my true power lay not in external validation, but in my own unwavering belief in my worth. I no longer feel the sting of their casual dismissals. They are simply part of the background noise, footnotes in my grand second act. My journey through divorce, family struggles, and workplace battles has forged me into a leader who is unafraid to be authentically herself. The silent changes of menopause, the subtle shifts in my body and mind, were not a decline. They were a refining fire, burning away all pretense, leaving only courage, clarity, and an unapologetic commitment to my own truth. I am a leader, not because I am unemotional, but because I allow my authentic self, my experience, and yes, my deeply felt emotions to inform every strategic decision. This, I realized, is the true meaning of power. And it is limitless. My legacy is not just my thriving business, but the indelible impact I've had on those around me, proving that experience, when truly valued, is the most powerful currency of all. My power isn't about control. It's about genuine impact. And that impact, ironically, began the moment they thought they could make me disappear. Linda turns to address the camera directly. She is in a sleek, modern, yet warmly inviting office space, perhaps a new branch of Harper Creative. Behind her, a large digital display shows a complex, but elegantly designed, data visualization project she is leading. She radiates quiet confidence and undeniable power. Have you ever had your voice dismissed, your passion trivialized, or your contributions undermined in the workplace because someone called you too emotional? Has your genuine engagement been misinterpreted as a weakness, simply because you're a woman, or because of your age? And what was the moment, that quiet, searing realization, when you knew you simply couldn't tolerate it anymore? Tell me your story in the comments below. Let's talk about how we reclaim our professional power, how we turn condescending labels into fuel for our greatest triumphs, and how we prove that true leadership requires authenticity, not suppression. Your story of finding your voice and your power in a challenging environment might be the exact inspiration someone else needs to do the same. And if you're ready to prove that your emotional intelligence is your greatest strategic advantage, if you're ready to claim your rightful place at the top, make sure you subscribe to the Silent Change After 50. We are building a powerful community where women over 50 are breaking barriers, redefining success, and proving that the true leaders are often the ones who refuse to be erased. Join us.